Welcome, friends! Your favorite degenerates, Krista and Jason, are at it again! Let's celebrate the day!
What's the situation, Degenerate Nation?
What's happening, Degenerates?
Hey guys, I've been struggling with some things as far as cruising goes. Of one tool that I could compile all of our cruise costs in, be they a port cost or a cruise cost or an on-the-ship cost or a excursion cost, what that means as far as like the percentage of our income, and then how many times we've been to ports. I mean, we use Shipmate. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's a pretty easy way to track your past cruises.
But in all fairness, I'll just like throw a number at you and say, hey, you feel like doing this for this much? And then you're like, okay. And so...
Yeah, we don't really know the percentage we actually spend on a cruise of our annual income that we would spend on a cruise.
Right.
I mean, after it's all said and done, we kind of figured it out. But going forward for saving and
Right.
budgeting, it's handy if we knew kind of how much we should be putting away. I mean, obviously, to this point, we just put as much away so we could cruise as much as we can.
Exactly.
I'm sure we'll continue, but we know if we want to proceed with a certain amount of cruising or whatever our budget is, then I've developed a tool that could be useful for you. So if I were to ask you how many times you've been to X port, or how many times you've sailed out of Port Canaveral or Miami or wherever, take your pick, you have to sit there and kind of add it up in your mind. Or maybe you're sharper than me and you know all that stuff right off the top of your head.
Most of the time. I paid pretty close attention to how much we've taken, how much cash we take with us, on the cruise. I know what our final bill is. I know what we paid for the cruise. I usually have an idea of gratuities and port fees. And so I usually have a pretty good, I'd say within $100 ballpark of what our entire cruise cost.
Yeah, sometimes we do better and sometimes we do worse. Yeah. But actually tracking it, down to the nitty gritty of it and making counts and yearly totals and things like that.
Right.
There's not really a tool for that I've noticed. No. Shipmate, it tells you where you went and when you started, and that's about it.
Right.
So, and you can give some feedback. So, I got out my Excel stuff again and I started programming, and I think I've landed at a pretty good, useful tool to keep track of your cruises costs and then divvy all those costs up. So
I like it so far.
Let's transition into it. Let's get to it. Okay, so here's the Excel sheet open. I pre-populated it with some stuff. Down here on the bottom, you're going to see 5 different tabs. So you got input data here, cruise itineraries, counts, costs, and financials year to year. So input data here, I love my green boxes. So everywhere you see a green box, feel free to type. You have to type everywhere in this one. So I went ahead and saved us the trouble rather than you sitting here watching me type. So what cruise line goes down this column? What the ship names are you've been on to go down this column. What places you've been go down this column. Everywhere you see one of these red triangles, hover over it and it'll give you a tip. So in this case, the tip is include your embarkation, debarkation, port, and sea days as a place, because we're going to want to track that, right? So my first thing, go ahead. What do you need?
Oh, there's a little typo in your thingy. Said days.
Said days. Alrighty.
Sorry, just caught that.
Where's my edit?
Edit note?
Edit note. There we go.
Okay, I'll bet.
That's why I bring Krista along here. Let me save that. There we go. All right. So include your sea days, debarkation port, embarkation port. So first places you see that I put here is sea days. Next, Port Canaveral, Nassau, Tampa, blah, 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 as we go down the list. Feel free to type in everywhere you've been. Then we go over to the next one. This is the actual itinerary. This is where I actually referenced Shipmate app to figure out where we had been.
Right.
So fill out the date and use the drop downs to complete your itinerary. So here we go on October 21st, 2013. We jumped on the Carnival Sensation. So I just hit this little drop down. And here's Carnival, hit this drop down. This is pulling information from the first sheet. So if you have a mistake on the first sheet or something's missing from this drop down, it's because input data here is not correct. Sensation, it's a 3-day cruise. It was out of Port Canaveral. We went to Nassau. We had a sea day, and then they dropped us off. I haven't put in the return on day 4 as a port. If you want to keep track of that, it'll just tell you you've been to Port Canaveral more times.
Right.
And then here's 2018, and if I scroll over, this sheet will actually take up to 14-day cruises.
Yeah, I think Carnival has some 15-day, and some of the other cruise lines have 21 days.
14 days probably going to cut it for most folks.
Right.
All right, so then over here to Carnival Liberty, Carnival Victory, Carnival Paradise. Let's say on Cinco de Mayo 2016, we went on Norwegian.
Sun.
I don't have the Sun in here. I have the Joy.
Okay.
I can put the Sun in there, and then it just adds it to the drop down. Let's say it was a 3-dayer. It was out of where's the Sun go out of, or the Joy go out of? Miami? Yeah, let's say Miami. Oop. Miami. I can either pick the drop down, or I can start typing the first few letters. Let's say it went to the first day was a sea day. Let's say the second day was Nassau, and then we're just going to basically do another one of these 3-dayers. And then the last day it dropped us off. Okay? Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Easy. Okay, so if you click over here on the Counts tab, you will see that there's nothing to fill out in the sheet. It's only reporting. If the date is not correct, check your cruise sheet. So, name of the place you've been to and the count of how many times you've been there. I've been at sea 7 days in this particular example. Port Canaveral twice, Nassau 4 times, Tampa twice, Cozumel 3 times, and so forth. I have been on Carnival 5 times, Royal 0 times, MSC 0 times, and we just filled out a Norwegian cruise, so it shows me once on Norwegian.
That's awesome.
If I want to see which ships I've been on and how many times I've been on there, the same deal. I've been on the Sensation once, the Miracle once, the Victory once, Paradise once, Oasis of the Seas 0 times because I put Oasis of the Seas over here, but I have no itinerary with the Oasis of the Seas over here. Then we just filled out the Joy, and then we have been on the MSC Seaside 0 in this example. If I click over or select over here, you can see that my cruises per year in 2016, we input a cruise, 19, 18, 13, and I get my nice little count of how many cruises I did per year. We click over here in costs. How much did this cruise cost? So if you want to put in your annual household income, this, I would probably, feel free, you can either put in your gross income or your bring home income to see which makes it easier for you to budget. Obviously, gross income is going to make your percentages look very small because you're counting the money before Uncle Sam took their cut.
Right.
And so if you want, let's say you make $100,000. And that maybe after tax, before tax, whatever. But if you actually made 100,000 gross, you see that this Sensation is only going to run you a 0.9% of your annual budget, which makes it look like you really got it going on. So let's say Uncle Sam takes their 30%. Now you see that that went up from 0.9 to 1.3.
That makes more sense.
So feel free to play with it both ways. My recommendation is to put your bring home money in there after you pay for your health care. After this is the money you actually have to spend in your house.
Right.
And you'll probably get a little better percentage. So in this case, let's say we need to input how much the cruise cost here. Input, you see a little tip here. Oop. The total cost, including taxes and port fees. That's out the door. That's not the website, hey, click here, my God, we can afford to go on a cruise every week because this is only $100.
Right.
Additional on the ship. Drinks, drink packages, gambling, t-shirts, specialty dining, anything you spend additional on the ship. Gambling, whatever. Spend in ports. Port costs are excursions, drinks, food, rentals, souvenirs, anything you do in the port. Travel to port should be any expense getting to the port. That's flights, hotels, gas, rental car, anything it costs you. Baggage fees.
Parking.
Yeah, parking, anything you got. So let's take the first example here. And on 10/21/2013, 3-day cruise on the Sensation, cruise cost was $626. There was $150 spent on the ship. $100 in the port, $55 to get to the port. Since we're Orlando based, pretty much that was gas and parking would be this example.
Yeah, and the reason we spent so little on the ship is because we were afraid. We had been told by several of the people that had cruised before, they were getting these $1,000 bills. And so we were freaked out about, just saying, okay, we'll just do this and we'll do that, because we were so freaked out. People were getting $1,000, $3,000 bills, and
Right.
so we didn't charge anything.
So then over here under grand total, and once again you type in the green boxes, leave the white boxes alone. Over here under grand total, it's $931 that cruise cost. Per day, it runs us $310 a day, because that's a 3-day cruise. That's out the door. That's every bit of money we spent on a cruise ship. And you should be able to start trending this out to see what you spend per day on a cruise so you can budget.
Right.
So this represents at this $70,000 mark, that would be 1.3%. We go down to the Carnival Miracle. This is actually a cruise we took.
Yep.
In 2014.
Actually, we took the Sensation too.
2018, we jumped on the Miracle, 7-day cruise. Cruise cost was $850. We spent $720 on the ship, gambling, drinks. We did get the drink package. I think that was largely the cost on that one. We spent $400 in port. We did some excursions and some other things.
Yeah.
And travel to port was about $100. Once again, mostly parking. The grand total of this cruise was $2,070. We're in that $295 a day range. For a grand total of 3% of our income, if that was a correct number.
Yep.
Same with Carnival Liberty. And what we start to extrapolate just by looking at this is the cruise cost per day. This one's $402, so that would be a little expensive versus the average, which is going to come out to $323.61. So now I'm kind of in that, I know what I'm about to spend per day on a cruise.
Yep.
And roughly that's going to be close to whatever you put in there. Your averages are going to be tight, unless it's a cruise where you did something special.
Well, and you could even forecast from this. You could put in, say Carnival's advertising a $500 a night cruise, or a $500 per person cruise. You could put in $1,000 for the cruise cost. You could put your drink package in. Number of ports, we usually budget $100 per port, so you could do that. And travel to port, it's based on parking and days for us, and so you could figure out if you're within your budget or if it's an expensive cruise.
If you're not Florida based, if you got to fly in or whatever the case is, your per day cost is going to go up, because it costs you
more to get to
fair
port.
amount of money to get to the port. You're probably not going to jump on 3-day cruises either.
No.
So as you stretch those travel costs over a longer period of time, it would be interesting to see what someone that has to travel in from the Midwest has to spend.
Yeah, well, you can see our cheapest cruise per day was a 7-day cruise, and all the other ones were 3, 4, and 5-day cruises, and they were more expensive.
Yeah, what did we do in the Liberty that was so expensive? This actually is a cruise we took that was $402 a day.
Because that's actually more accurate costs.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right, so continue on. I guess you kind of get that. We'll go to financials year to year. So there's nothing to add up here. All this is self-populating. It just starts pulling data from all over the sheet. So in 2016, there was one cruise. I don't have any cost for it, because you see that's a BS cruise that I filled in here. And we didn't put anything in as far as costs over here. So that one doesn't have any data. In 2013, here would be that Sensation cruise that we took. One cruise, the cruise cost, the additional on the ship, the port cost, the travel cost, and the total cost. So, and that's not too hard to figure out. I mean, obviously I knew that by going over here to cost, because we only took one cruise in 2013. Where it starts to get a little jumbled is when you get into multiple cruises. So in 2019, there's 3 cruises for a cruise cost of $1,976. Additional spent on the ship was $1,230. This is through all 3 of those cruises. Port costs $850, travel costs $200, for a grand total in 2019 of $4,256.
Which isn't bad.
Now we get down into budgeting, though. So if we wanted to continue to do cruises like we did in 2019, that's going to run about $4,200, $4,300. If you want to do more cruising, now we're starting to get down to the nitty gritty of what we would need to save with a little bit of inflation. I mean, costs go up, Cheers went up $5 or whatever the case is. So feel free to know kind of what it is. Instead of winging it, you can start to budget for it. And if you need, say, $5,000 a year is what you want to spend on cruising, now you know how much you need to put away, and you can also get an idea of what that $5,000 can buy you, unless you want to take a very expensive cruise. So that's it. Cool little sheet, I think, to be able to track costs. I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about the money, but let's face it, the money is really at the heart of the matter.
Oh yeah.
It's nobody wants to talk about the money when they're having a good time. Not me, not nobody. And when I get on a cruise ship, I don't want to sit there and be an accountant. I don't want to pinch pennies. I want to have a good time. And that's pretty much been our MO is let's cruise as much as we can for as cheap as possible. But when we get on the cruise ship, I don't want to have to sweat it too much. I'm not saying we go on a drinking binge well, maybe we binge drink. If I have the drink package, then I'm gonna take advantage of it. We don't gamble our millions of dollars. We don't do a bunch of super expensive stuff. More ports than often. We maybe haven't done an excursion. We've done some exploring.
Yes.
So just depending. But our cruise style, if we wanted to repeat last year, then we would need somewhere in that mid 4,000 range to be able to pull that off again this year.
And what we like to do, I mean, we actually prefer the budget cruises. That if you go back to that tab of costs, we actually, most of our cruises were in the 1,000. The grand total was just 1,000 or just over 1,000 for a lot of our cruises. And
it's 2019. There's 3 cruises, 1,000, 1,200, 1,280, and 1,700.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of our cruises are smaller dollar cruises, but we can afford to do more $1,000 cruises, which, if you go out of Miami, it's, they're cheaper out of Miami because there's a lot of ships. If you go out of Tampa, we have a lot of ports, 5 ports near us. So for us, being Florida based, it's really easy to just get on a ship. And we've also learned that, some of the cruise lines offer better deals, 2 weeks before you sail versus, 2 years before you sail. So.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I haven't seen anything like this tool out there.
No.
So I want to share with you guys. Check the description, and I'll leave a link to my Google Drive or wherever where you can download it. Feel free to fill in your numbers. Obviously, talking about money over the internet or what we make or how much we spend percentage-wise, we've avoided that. So feel free to type in what you want in there to get an accurate representation of what you might spend a year, where you've been, and when somebody asks you how many times have you been to Aruba, you have an accurate count.
Yeah, that actually was really cool.
Or how many days at sea have you? How many days have you been at sea? I was
surprised at the number of days at sea we've had, because
I know. See,
and
the magic of Excel.
But I mean, it's not my. I love the first sea day, and most of I think all of our itineraries have been, except for our first cruise, was you get on the ship, you have a sea day, and then you do ports, and then you have a sea day, and then you're back.
Yeah, it just depends on what you get.
And that last sea day is not my favorite.
No, but it still counts as a sea day.
It still counts as a sea day. But
how you feel about your cruise is up to you.
That's true.
And choose a better cruise if you don't want. But anyway, feel free, put in whatever you want in there. Enjoy it. If you have any comments or issues with it, then let me know and I'll resolve it. I'll do what I can for you. Until then, enjoy. Bye. Celebrate the day.
Thanks for watching. Much love to our friends. Be the good in the world. Spread the love and go on an adventure. Please like, comment, and subscribe.